Hello, and welcome to this video on variations on the classic red button, blue button dilemma. In this video, you will probably need to have a PhD in logic and a PhD in game theory and a PhD in psychology and a PhD in ethical philosophy in order to understand anything that's going on in the video. But, yeah, the original red button, blue button dilemma is in the description if you don't know what it is. We will be starting with scenarios that completely flip that entire dilemma on its head, and we'll be ending with the most subtle, infinitesimal differences in the scenarios that I present and the original. So let's begin with scenario 1. In scenario 1, every human on Earth is placed into a room with a red button and a blue button. If more than 50% of people press the red button, then everyone who has pressed the blue button will die. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. If more than 90% of people press the red button, then the aliens who run the experiment will not only kill everyone who pressed the blue button, they will randomly kill one person who has pressed the red button. Scenario 2. In this scenario, everyone on Earth is instructed to push either a red button or a blue button since they are locked in the room and cannot escape until they have pressed one of the buttons. If more than 50% of people press the red button, then everyone who has pressed the blue button will die. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. If more than 50.01% of people press the red button, then the aliens who run the experiment will randomly select 1,000 red button pushers and send them to drown in a vat of scalding hot oil. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. If you press the red button, the doors don't unlock immediately. The aliens will randomly pick a slur that you will have to say in order for the doors to unlock. There is no one else in the room, and the only recording equipment is not capable of storing the clip of you saying the slur. It just unlocks the door once you say it. Scenario number 3. In scenario number 3, not everyone gets to press the red button or the blue button. You're the only person who's pressing the red button or the blue button. In this scenario, if you press the red button, the aliens who run the experiment will randomly select 1 million people to be subjected to brutal torture for the next 20 years and then die from drowning in a vat of scalding hot oil. If you press the blue button, 1 nickel will be deducted from your liquid assets. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. Since you're part of the experiment, you would think that you would be immune to the red button, but you are not. Pressing the red button still puts you in the pool of people who could potentially be tortured brutally for 20 years and sent to drown in a vat of scalding hot oil. And if the population of the Earth is 8 billion, then the chance that pressing the red button will subject you to that fate is 1 in 8,000. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. The blue button will only deduct the entire nickel from your liquid assets if you live in a region of relative economic prosperity. The poorer the region that you come from, the less money you will lose. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. If you don't want to, you can just press neither button and walk away, and nothing will happen. Scenario number 4. You are an alien, and in front of you are a glorp button and a zepsk button. If you press the glorp button, it will send a squadron of ships to a planet 45 light years away, which you detected, you and your society's equivalent to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, with radio chatter indicating that they possess a degree of intelligence. So you can press the glorp button, send a squadron of ships their way, and force them to participate in some weird, fucked up experiment. Or you can press the Zepsk button, and it will instead send a radio message to them, declaring that you would wish to create some sort of peace and cooperation between your cultures. Thinking about pressing the glorp button? Well, there's a caveat. When you send the ships to that planet, if they refuse to participate in the experiment, the captain is under orders to scan the planet's surface and orbitally bombard anything with more stopping power than an elephant gun. And if the humans still do not choose to undergo the experiment, then you will... Well, the captain is under orders to send 100 or so powered armored soldiers to the surface of the Earth who will be completely invulnerable after the orbital bombardment, and they will capture 1,200 of the most physically fit and docile humans and take them back through the shuttle up to your fleet of ships and keep them prisoner. And then you will use an antimatter bomb on every city on Earth, or as many cities as you have antimatter bombs. And then you will send a modified von Neumann machine to the planet that they call Mercury, which will create children and grandchildren, which will mine the planet Mercury for resources in order to construct a Dyson swarm around the sun of that planet. And it will redirect the energy of the sun towards the human's home planet Earth until it is nothing but a ball of molten slag. Still thinking about pressing the glorp button? Well, there's a caveat. The planet is 45 light years away, which means both the radio message and the fleet of ships will arrive during what you project will be an information age stage of development. However, the squadron of ships takes 48 years to travel the 45 light years. And under constant acceleration from their point of view, according to special relativity, the subjective time that will be experienced on that fleet of ships will be 10.64 years for the trip from your home planet to the Earth, and 10.64 years for the trip from the Earth back to your home planet, plus the amount of time, of course, that it takes to run the experiment while you are at Earth, while your fleet is at Earth. That doesn't mean that each of the crew members actually has to experience 21 point something years of subjective time, because the only members of the crew who will be awake during the transit, they will be engineers who will just take turns coming out of hypersleep to monitor the ship systems and then going back into hypersleep. So none of the aliens under your control should experience a subjective amount of time longer than half a year. So, scenario number 5. You are a human, and in front of you is a red button, a blue button, a blue button, and a blue button. If you press the red button, everyone who on Earth will be sent to hell to suffer for eternity. Also, every human and hominid who has ever lived on the Earth will be plucked from whatever afterlife or non-afterlife that they are existing or not existing in, and send them to hell to suffer for eternity. If you press the blue button instead, crime and casualties from war will both be decimated. That means 10% of crimes will be committed across all demographics, all types of crimes, and all geographical locations. And Wars will be fought less often for less amount of time and with less soldiers, and the combined effect will be that the amount of casualties per year will become 10% of what they were. If you press the blue button, poverty, extreme poverty, homelessness, and starvation will all be decimated. The amount of people who experience each of those things will be 10% of what it was before you press the blue button. If you press the blue button, all the morbidity of all diseases, both environmental and genetic, will be decimated. The amount of humans who experience them will be reduced to 10% of what it was. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. None of the blue buttons have any monkey's paw type side effects, such as the blue button curing someone's environmentally caused diseases, trapping them in some kind of agonizing, traumatic, or torturous existence, such as if someone were to fall into a volcano while they were hiking alone. The power of the blue button wouldn't just cure their heat stroke and third-degree burns forever, trapping them in the volcano until a spy satellite gets either advanced enough or lucky enough to spot them, at which point they'll wait for a helicopter to come and with a rope ladder which is somehow able to support a human's body weight after coming within a few feet of molten lava. That would be a monkey's paw type side effect, so it won't happen. Also, medical research will not come to a crawl because any clinical trial for a sufficiently rare disease would have its sample size cut to 10%. That would be a monkey's paw side effect. So therefore, the aliens who run the experiment, who are omniscient, will just send any medical researcher who conducts a trial the data that they would have gotten as if their sample size was 10 times larger. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. The blue button, the blue button, and the blue button are all the same shade of blue, and the aliens who run the experiment are going to cover them with cups and shuffle them around to make it so you can't tell them apart. And this won't be sissy shit either. This is going to be as hard as the hats from Fair Square in Mario Party 6, so you will have to lock in if you want to tell them apart. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. You're only allowed to press a maximum of 3 buttons. Scenario number 6. Imagine you're a human and in front of you are a red button and a blue button and an orange button and a yellow button and a green button and a purple button. If you push any of the buttons, they do nothing. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. You've actually suffered a completely unprecedented and undiscovered type of brain injury where you are able to perceive the qualia of seeing color, but your rational mind cannot interpret, distinguish, identify, or rationalize colors. So you will still be able to see the outlines of things, but you will not be able to tell the buttons apart. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. That accident that caused you to have a brain injury has also sent you into a 3-week coma, and the aliens who run the experiment got tired of waiting and instead gave the button experiment to someone else to do. Scenario 7. In this scenario, you live in a universe where red buttons and blue buttons cannot exist. Instead, there are 52 white buttons and 36 black buttons. Pressing any of the buttons will cause a hammer to hit one or more strings, which will produce a note on the Western musical scale. Thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. The aliens have not placed the buttons randomly. Instead, they have arranged them using a sort of alien logic. Any button which is to the left of another button will produce a lower note than the button to the right. Also, all of the white buttons produce notes that appear on the A natural minor musical scale, and all of the black buttons produce notes that are not on the A natural minor music scale. Still thinking about pressing the red button? Well, there's a caveat. Beneath you are 3 brass-colored buttons that you can press using the balls of your feet, but the aliens have not revealed what the brass buttons actually do, and it will be impossible for any human to deduce what they are actually for. Think about the moral and logical implications of this for a second. Your intuition should be screaming at you that this is a paradox. How can a scenario which is so infinitesimally different from the classic red button and blue button scenario produce such a drastically different result? Well, it's not a paradox. It's actually well within the rules of logic that such an experiment can produce such a wildly different result. It seems crazy that pressing the red button is no longer immoral and pressing the blue button is no longer irrational just because we changed something as minor as making the scenario take place in a universe where red buttons and blue buttons cannot exist. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment saying whether you would press the red button in all 7 scenarios. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.